everyone, welcome to the Storyboard special. I'm Shibani Gharat. The world is changing at a pace we have never seen before. There is a lot of volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity, which is VUCA. The Indian Society of Advertisers, that is ISA, recently held a conference in Mumbai, ISA Global CEO Conference, themed VUCA 2.0, transforming organizations and brands, and it featured eminent list of speakers and panelists from different industries. Together they discussed how to navigate these complex and uncertain times and what lies ahead. Well, I'm at the event and getting you all the action from the venue.
So on behalf of ISA, first of all, it's my absolute privilege to welcome each one of you to this third edition of ISA's Global CEO Conference. It's actually, you know, that this conference is something which we last did actually pre-COVID in 2019. We tend to do it normally once in 2 years, and this is a pretty marquee event for us. The ISA has been established in 1952, and we now celebrate exactly 7 decades of our journey here, and that's a pretty long period. We are the apex body of advertisers in India, and we have played a pretty critical role in promoting the interests of advertisers across these 7 decades.
What VUCA 2 represents, clearly, is a period of incredibly high volatility, tremendous uncertainty, a huge complexity, and an unfathomable ambiguity. Organizations and brands are facing newer and ever-changing demands that require them to adopt a new radical approach to devising, marketing, advertising, distribution, digitization, innovation, technology, people and process. In that context, I'm absolutely delighted that we have brought this conference to you with clearly the theme, Transforming Organizations and Brands.
I'm excited to share my thoughts on how to create value in a fast-changing environment. The way the topic is framed suggests it is difficult to create value in a VUCA world. I actually believe a VUCA world provides more opportunities to create value by opening up many new avenues for innovation. Today, I plan to do this by sharing some examples that highlight how change creates opportunities for innovation that can drive market growth and create value for all stakeholders. Sales growth driven by market growth creates shareholder and customer value and drives economic progress.
This one question is, this whole perspective from P&G on digital advertising. This is the challenge that we all grappling with, that how do you really measure it along with, TV advertising? And this is the mother of all debates which is happening. There's no single currency of measurement, and we keep hearing about different perspectives. So how does P&G see it, globally?
No differently. It's a challenge. Listen, the way I put it is, I think that's one of the big things which we find. I think it's also, by the way, going to change what kind of leaders run businesses in the future. I think there is most successful leaders of the future will be what I call learning leaders and not knowing leaders. And one of the reasons I believe the learning leaders will be the ones who drive the future success and are successful themselves will be because, frankly, we all know what we did 10 years back, but really no one knows what to do in the current environment. And so it has got to be learning.
To say that the world is going through unprecedented times is probably stating the obvious. In fact, the word unprecedented has been used so often in the last 2 years that it has in many ways lost its meaning. The truth is that the COVID-19 pandemic, which while being contained is certainly not behind us, has affected the global economy, and not just the economy, but society at large in profound and unimaginable ways.
While the COVID itself was a huge human challenge, the global economy's reaction to it gave rise to many macroeconomic issues, which we are still grappling with today, and possibly we've not even seen the peak of those issues hit us. Inflation's very real around us. From a people standpoint, we've seen the great resignation drive. Our supply chains continue to be very disrupted. We ourselves are facing extreme challenges with chip shortage, On one hand, the digital surface areas are significantly increasing, which means we need more and more electronics out there. But gosh, we are facing huge issues in terms of our ability to scale because of chip shortages. And then the climate change and the opportunity to really embrace that in a big way, and not counting the geopolitical unfortunate situation that we still face in the world, which is causing all of these issues. The next 18 months, my view, will continue to remain uncertain, adding to this complexity, especially in the world of business, and it's going to fundamentally reboot how we work from here on.
So far, we had 4 paradigms of marketing in a very broad way. And we are now at the verge of the 5th paradigm of marketing. So for example, when you look at the shift from paradigm 2 to 3, which happened precisely around the time that internet was born, this is mid-1990s, and you had the whole aspect of data-driven marketing that's come in. So data analytics till then were a little alien in terms of its use within marketing space, but when it started seeping into the area of marketing, the whole field of marketing has become completely pivoted from being a qualitative based on aesthetics, psychology, anthropology, and sociology. It moved into data, analytics, return on investment, precision marketing, precise targeting, and so on and so forth. It really went a paradigm shift.
So in this, world which is full of data and then ROI driven, how can you really sell it to clients who are bending more towards transactional solutions rather than emotional solutions to brands' problems?
Stickiness is absolutely critical. And how you deliver it is very contextual to the consumer, to the product category or the service category that you are in, and what is the consumer's experience in that particular category so far. And that's what would determine. Now, often this example is given of running on a treadmill. You can keep winning at every single transaction, which of course you have to, but you need to realize where is it that you are constantly running on the treadmill versus you are setting up like a, flywheel, where you're creating momentum and the momentum keeps carrying you forward faster and faster, which is basically that affinity dynamic or fealty dynamic or allegiance dynamic or call it whatever it is there. It has to be a combination of both.
I've really enjoyed rediscovering the pulse and momentum of the country, the energy of our youth and women, particularly, especially when it relates to alcohol. And we know that India is a land of opportunity, but I'm absolutely struck by the strides we've made on digitization and the way the top end of the market, the luxury market and consumer experiences have developed over these last few years that I've been away, right? Even in the alcohol industry, I'm amazed to see the shifts that have come about. We've been seeing a trend of people drinking better, which essentially means premiumization, right? But I think that has massively accelerated during COVID.
Suresh, you want to speak about marketing, and I think that would be extremely important considering that social media has changed the way in which you can communicate. As well, social mores have changed. So, how are you doing things differently in terms of marketing and positioning products?
Let me just give my piece on VUCA itself. I think VUCA, by the way it is defined, is meant to scare you, is meant to confuse you, is meant to confound you, it's meant to depress you. But honestly, if you run a business with that kind of attitude, as I would say in Hindi, जो VUCA नहीं समझेगा वो भूखा मरेगा. And that's what life is all about. You don't understand VUCA, भूखे मरोगे तुम.
You inspire me to give you Hindi dialogues. So loha lohe ko katta hai, VUCA VUCA ko katta hai. Only this VUCA has to be interpreted as what vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. Okay, that's the mantra at Nestle. Mr. Khosla, you've seen it in P&G and now in a consumer durable company. Perhaps the challenges here were even more because you went through a corporate restructuring and then you were faced with a mix of problems from COVID to higher raw material costs and I guess changing lifestyles as well. What do you adopt as a way to tackle all problems?
It doesn't matter what the environment is. From a marketing point of view, to win in any environment, you need to understand what the consumer wants better and deliver it better. Full stop. It doesn't matter whether commodities are going up, COVID is coming. Here's the issue, and I think Suresh alluded to this. If you start thinking of the world as VUCA, you get distracted by so many other things as an organization, that instead of staying focused on the fundamentals which work, you start looking at other stuff.
What are the main verticals that you see differently? How has your management philosophy changed in the last 5 years compared to what it was when you started your career?
How has it changed since I started? I mean, I think, Lata, it is related to the volatility question, right? I think life used to be pretty certain when I started, and I started with Nestle, Suresh, I know from there. It was a very steady state. You went into brand management, you did, the 4 Ps of marketing, and you followed everything from business school, and life was great, life was settled. I mean, how has it changed now? Boy, I don't know anything, right? So, I mean, I don't know tomorrow how my consumer is going to be. And in the alcohol industry, frankly, we are used to VUCA just by virtue of working in this industry. So, I mean, VUCA 2.0, frankly, has no meaning for me because the alcohol industry is VUCA all the way. It's probably VUCA 5, right? So, really the philosophy is create an organization that is flexible, that is able to rapidly adapt to changes as they come, and have the bandwidth to allocate resources dynamically so that as change happens, you are not stuck with a certain structure, but you are able to deal with flexibly all the changes that are happening in your organization.
Renuka, how has, I think, digitization changed? I mean, we all spoke about private equity even earlier, but I can understand you backing Ajay Bijli or PVR. Like, we all watched cinemas. So it seemed an easy choice. But now, how do you back the right startup?
For me, VUCA is the opportunity. I wait for VUCA. When there is no VUCA, there is no business for us. So it's the disruption that gives us the opportunity. And what I experience through this digital transformation and COVID, which accelerated the digital transformation, is how much agile management could create value, and that value they could invest back into the business to make it a moat, which in turn creates an oligopolistic or monopolistic environment where the value creation goes through a very, very steep curve.
It is time for a short break. More action from the ISA Global CEO Conference on the other side of this break. You don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Storyboard. The world is experiencing a time of unprecedented change with several global macroeconomic factors impacting both consumers and businesses, as well as the likes of cookieless future that awaits us. So how do you steer through this and drive growth for your business? Well, I'm at the ISA Global CEO Conference, VUCA 2.0, transforming organizations and brands, to find out more. We have Sunil Kataria, Chairman, Indian Society of Advertisers, joining us, telling us more about this particular conference. Sunil, welcome to CNBC-TV18.
My pleasure.
Sunil, this is, we are meeting actually on the sidelines of VUCA 2.0, and as we discussed some time back, this is a term that, many of us heard like about 10 to 12 years ago. And it is more relevant now than ever before. Can you share with us what difference can, a conference like this bring to, let's say, Indian brands or Indian organizations, and what are they going through right now?
Yeah.
So obviously, as all of you know that, we've all gone through a black swan event of a COVID pandemic, maybe a once in a century kind of a phenomena which happens, which has kind of altered all paradigms, all assumptions of how businesses are run, or for that matter, how lives take place, So I think that's a fundamental piece, which is the backdrop of, this conference. What we all thought that while post-pandemic, there is definitely a new normal emerging, we also expected that some kind of stability would also start coming in. But what we are suddenly seeing, let's say in a post-pandemic period, are some major geopolitical shifts happening, like, Russia invading Ukraine, which you would never expect maybe to happen in this century, And the challenging part is something which is happening in Ukraine and Europe has equally big ramifications of businesses which are being managed in India. Because one of the biggest phenomena of this, let's say the Russia-Ukraine war, is the global inflation which is taking place. It's one of the causes. So I think clearly one thing which is happening in this world of what we are calling now maybe a VUCA 2.0 is that this is not about the volatility or the ambiguity that you experience in your current domain of businesses. This could be something which is happening globally, something thousands of miles away, but it could still impact your business equally badly, and you have to learn to navigate that. So I guess that's the backdrop of what all businesses have to learn to live with. Maybe a very global phenomena of VUCA rather than just a very local phenomena of VUCA.
Absolutely. And, there's this lingering fear of monkeypox. Already, COVID still continues to exist in our life. The cost of living has increased. Inflationary headwinds are impacting big spenders, such as auto companies are facing supply chain issues. Of course, FMCG companies are having their fair share of, cost and price rise that they have to go through every couple of months. How are Indian brands poised to deal with all of this, given that festive season is right here?
So I think, this is the time, there are two phenomena happening. One is that, I would say a very positive side, which is happening is that after a gap of 2 years is when the Indian consumer would have a freedom of celebrating a proper festival season. I think that's a positive backdrop. And I'm hoping nothing else happens in the meantime, Otherwise, for the last 2 years, every festival season has got impacted by some lockdown or other. So I think that's one positive backdrop in which the consumption hopefully should get a, spurt. The second positive thing which has definitely happened is the monsoons have been pretty strong. After a start which was slower, I think they panned out by and large reasonably well, given a couple of states obviously which are still deficient. So I think what this does is, this augurs positively for the consumption which is likely to pan out. The headwind definitely is inflation, which I think the biggest thing that all of us are grappling, that there is a very, very sharp spiral of commodity inflation across sectors which is happening. So I think this is the tricky balance which has to get managed by CEOs and organizations right now, that you do not let this inflationary headwind come in way of investments behind consumer demand. I think that's very important at this time. And the way you do that is manage your costs better, manage your operating efficiencies better, but do not stop yourself as you balance out your margins to invest behind consumer demand at this time, because that's the most critical part.
Sunil, thank you so much. Thanks for these insights and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We are all struggling with dealing with the current environment. And this is, I'm sorry to use a cliched word, unprecedented, in the way that none of us have really dealt with these magnitude, this space, and this kind of, this comprehensiveness of issues, right? And I think in that sense, we're all taking away from each other's experiences, not really looking at a formula or some magic, portion to this, but can we create that ecosystem in our organizations and teams that we have a far more flat or democratic exchange of views, where we're all on the same boat, but can we just have that higher level of self-awareness, ideation, thinking?
Well, VUCA is something we heard almost 10 years back, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And since then, I think the pandemic has redefined VUCA altogether. So to me now, actually, VUCA is non-existent. We have learned to live in a transient world. We have learned to live in a world where anything can happen. So pandemic in that sense redefined VUCA. And I think all of us have gotten used to it. Newer things are happening and supply side problems and like monkeypox you spoke of, or I think people are way more prepared. Businesses in particular, I think, have shorter cycles and agile way of functioning, and agile management I think, has been embraced by most organizations. So I think it's great.
I think this is a refreshing thought, and I have not heard people in high positions express this thought. I mean, most people toe the line of, yes, sustainability is very important, and in the long run it'll pay off. Here is a global leader who's telling us that sustainability has to be sustainable. That I thought was a very refreshing thought.
I would rather choose to look at it positively. I think in place of volatility, we should be looking at vision. In place of uncertainty, we should be looking at understanding. In place of chaos, we should be looking at clarity. And in place of ambiguity, we should be looking at adaptability. And therefore, I think if you look at the lens differently, and this was said by a futurist himself, I think it makes it'll make a lot more of sense to be able to manage the future with confidence rather than with fear.
Well, there's some obvious trends which are happening. The first are trends which are happening pretty much globally, from starting, I guess, from a climate change and sustainability point of view. These are affecting my business today. Things like energy efficiency. Over the last 5 years, the entire lighting industry has completely transformed to LED. It's going to start happening on all electrical items also. E-waste, plastic waste, recycling. We have to not wait for these regulations, but actually begin building into the design of our products an ability to be sustainable. On top of that, there's some very clear consumer changes which are happening as mega trends. You're seeing greater urbanization, more nuclear families, more working women, compression of available time. All of these will start modifying, developing the needs of propositions and products people will need.
Here is hoping that every change carries within itself the seeds of greater transformation and greater good. On that note, it is a wrap on Storyboard this week. You can catch all of our content on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Thanks for watching this Storyboard special. Goodbye.